Isn't it critical that we listen to our own beingness? That we perceive our own heart and our own experience of being alive, and that we give our energy and our consciousness to that to bring it to the world, rather than wait for other people to decide and discern what we should be and form ourselves like clay into that, fire it, and find out that we will end up broken. No? I had this amazing yoga teacher. He lived in this area. He just recently moved to Hawaii, and when he moved to Hawaii, I said, we need to keep in touch. Can you tell me your Facebook stuff or whatever so that I can keep in touch with you? Because he was just incredible. He was a fabulous yoga teacher, but he was also fabulous at bringing the consciousness to the class, the spiritual practice to the class. And one of the things he would always say, which is something that you hear with a lot of young folks today, I'm saying that as if I'm not one of them. It's true now. He would always say, "You do you, friends. You do you." And then he would go on in the yoga class to bring us back to that practice and that presence of you do you. And this young man certainly knew how to embrace and embody that principle, because he was a beautiful being. And I found out when I got online that he was so much more than a yoga instructor. He was an incredible dancer. He had an incredible form and a body he had developed. He taught dance lessons to dance troupes, all these little children that learned from him. He was incredible. And I was actually like, my jaw dropped when I saw his photos and I saw the life that he lived beyond my yoga class. I thought he was incredible just as it was in the class, and I knew his consciousness. In fact, I was actually going to invite him at some point to come here and share with us some Sunday, because he was that stellar of an amazing human being. But the biggest thing that stood out to me, always in the classes, was when he would go back and he would say, "You do you." And that's how he lives his life. So what does that mean, you do you? Even though we may say it to each other and you may hear it said, it's not about someone else, is it? If we use the words you do you and it's about someone else and it's saying, "Hey, get out of my business, you do you," what are we doing? We're in someone's business, no? We're in someone's business saying, the way you're doing it is not the way you should be doing it, so you do you. You do you is really a self-talk. It's something that we would say to ourselves when we find ourselves falling off the edge and allowing other people's opinions and ideas to become records in our minds, to become voices which we end up following, or ones that get confused with our own. So when we say you do you, the real practice is about tuning in to how we are doing life and making sure that we're coming from the inside out. And not only coming from the inside out, but it's about really finding out who you are. Truly finding out about who you are as a unique, unrepeatable expression of God, a unique, unrepeatable expression of the infinite, of source of love, that is so magnificently pressed in you, through you, and as you, that you're the only one that can do it. And if you fail to do it, friends, you are giving all of us a disservice, because we are finding a muted, dampened version of you. And my favorite quote of all time is Howard Thurman, who said, "Don't ask the world what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go and do that, because the world needs people who have come alive." When someone is truly alive, friends, they have no interest in criticizing, in gossiping, in sharing stories, in attacking, in harming, in killing. They have no interest in all of that, because the tank is full inside. And when we do enough reflection on ourselves, that need to criticize, to judge, to mold someone else to beingness dissipates, because we realize we are a full-time job. And we begin to experience the grace of this universe. We begin to see how other people create grace and space for us to be our perfect, imperfect self. And we recognize how that space helps us and supports our own spiritual development. I was recently watching a Jim Carrey video on art and the self. Has anyone seen that one? It's a little 6-minute video. That man is pretty remarkable. I've seen a few things by him. This was one of the best ones I've seen. But he talks about art and his practice, his film, but also painting and what that has done for him. And in the clip, he starts going into what it's like to be original, and that if we really tune into ourselves, we can create something original, that everyone that's different, and who doesn't feel different, right? Who doesn't feel different? He says that everyone who is different has the potential to be original. And when we bring that aliveness to life, we uplift life and we uplift other people. He talks about artistry, and he said, an artist makes something from the inner life manifest on the outer life. And then he goes on as well, talking about how with art, no one tells you what you can or can't do. He also talks about the Christ consciousness in the video. And he says that he thinks that people create images of Jesus that look like their culture. Like who else gets a little annoyed sometimes by the white, blue-eyed Jesus? Like if we're talking facts here, or cultural, right? It's like, what are we doing? But he made a good point in the video. He said, because this Christ presence, Jesus the Christ, not the last name, the consciousness that was embodied and expressed through Jesus, because he demonstrated this pure acceptance, this pure love, this unconditional state of holy consciousness come down, embodied into a human being and pressed forth to bless people, to be that gift of raising awareness and raising consciousness. Because of that, people that experience that consciousness tend to create it, draw it, like themselves. And he turns that around so that we can see the beautiful side of that every culture makes the Christ consciousness in its own image. And isn't that kind of the truth of, if you study ancient texts and you study world culture, there are so many traditions that have an awakened state of consciousness. And it may be through a spiritual being that came onto the planet, maybe through a deity or an idea, but it is customized to their people in their time. It leads us back to the truth that we are, yes, original beings, and we are also all one and of the same light. So why is it so hard to be ourselves? Why is it so hard to embrace and embody a life of you do you? Well, I think one of the first things we can say is that it doesn't always feel safe. It doesn't always feel safe. All you have to do is turn on the news. All you have to do is be someone that's discriminated against. All you have to do is see what humanity can be in the absence of love, compassion, and light. And when you see that, it can be terrifying, no? And it can, in fact, be a threat to your own physical life. But does that mean we don't do it? The author Ram Dass, the spiritual teacher and author, talks about how important it is to be ourselves, to learn ourselves, and to know ourselves. He says that one of the ways in which we are socialized by our caretakers growing up is that they reward us or punish us for our behavior. The result is that we grow up looking to others for evaluation of our behavior. Were it only our behavior, it would be all right, but often we look to others for an evaluation of ourselves. Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Do I have the right to exist? He says many of us end up constantly looking into other people's eyes to find out who we are. That is probably the most detrimental thing we could ever do to ourselves. In the Gospel of Thomas, the master teacher, says, if your leaders say to you, look, the imperial rule is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you it's in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the imperial rule is inside you and outside you. When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty. You are the poverty. I was recently talking with one of my friends from AGNT, which is AGNT. It's our Association for Global New Thought, which is the collection of spiritual centers and spiritual practice, and it is now known as one of the world religions since 2015 at the Parliament of World Religions. It is what unity is. It is what Centers for Spiritual Living is. It is what Agape and Reverend Michael Beckwith, that many of you know, is. And I was recently talking to one of my friends, Reverend Kevin Ross from Unity in Sacramento, and we were talking about things with ministry and organization, and it can not take very long for me when I am with colleagues to feel very small. It can happen in an instant. Kevin was recently praying in our United States House of Representatives. I mean, that's someone that does some stuff. When I share in the circle and I hear all the things about all these accomplishments and what everyone does and how well they do these things and how they think, moment by moment, I can begin to feel really small and think, what am I doing here with these people? Because I know myself, and I have a different brain, I have a different spirit, I have a different style. I remember in my interview to come here, I looked at the ministers of the past, and I literally said this in my interview. One, I said, I'm praying you up, and for the right person. Having nothing to do with me, I am knowing with you that the right person is here. But I also said, I just got to tell you, though, I'm a little disheveled. Who says that in an interview? It was a good warning, though. It's good to give people warnings about yourself. And I do stuff from the inside out. I do it by showing up authentically. I'm not a program developer. I'm not a person. I'm the person that goes to these conferences and I feel like at the end of them, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, we have to implement that program and start doing that and find people that want to do that. I'm the biggest environmentalist. Well, I'm not. Stan is much bigger. But I am a huge environmentalist, and we're not even part of the Earth Care ministry teams, which is Unity's Earth Care, like, environmental thing. I mean, I'm the one who started the Environmental Studies Club in my college. I was in high school going on something called Earth Train, and I'm like, a program, and we have to do checklists, and, like, let's just be it. Let's just be it. Not that I don't want to still get it done officially on the piece of paper that should be electronic, but in my conversation, back around to Kevin Ross, in my conversation with him, I was expressing some of this and, getting wisdom and getting feedback on some things that we're going through here and how I know about the consciousness piece, but how logically I can support this all unfolding in the greatest way, listening to his amazing ideas and how he does things and thinking, And so somehow we ended up with a question because he really sees me. And he presenced me in a way when I expressed how I can feel so inadequate at times. And he presenced me in a way, and he just started talking about how I do ministry and how I do life and what a gift it is and how right it is and how perfectly, uniquely ordained I am to do what I do. And as he was talking about it, he even went into music, and he was saying music is part of your ministry. It's part of everything that you are. And as he was saying this, I found myself hearing it from away, a space that was outside of my own mind. And then I started seeing the thread. He was like tying the thread, and I started seeing it. And I started to get this idea that there is a part of me always holding back because I wonder if what I am is the right fit for anything. When I was on the road, I constantly said, I went to ministerial school and I graduated, but along the whole way I said, but I don't think that I will ever fit into a church. I think that probably won't happen. Well, look where we are, friends, right? But when you start to see yourself, not from a critical eye, not from the judgmental eye, but from how you are actually created uniquely and different, you begin to realize that if you embrace that, there can be a boldness that will come to life that is original. And what the world is ready for is each of us to be the original light and the original love that we are. Not to take on someone else's idea or someone else's perspective, but to trust in our own process, trust in our own intuition, trust in our own unfoldment. When we do that, we recognize that there's no need to worry about criticisms and condemnations. This is the one life, and it is our lives, and it is unfolding now, and it's worth it to live it. Do not trade your perception or your perspective for someone else's idea. There's a story you may have heard, a little parable about a womb. In a mother's womb, there were 2 babies. The first baby asked the other, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" The second baby replied, "Why, of course, there has to be something after delivery. Maybe we're here to prepare ourselves for what will be later." "Nonsense," said the first. "There is no life after delivery. What would that life be?" "I don't know, but there will be more light than here. Maybe we'll walk with our legs and eat from our mouths." The doubting baby laughed. "This is absurd. Walking is impossible, and eat with our mouths ridiculous. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition. Life after delivery is to be excluded. The umbilical cord is too short." The second baby held its ground. "I think there is something, and maybe it's different than it is here." The first baby replied, "No one has ever come back from there." I have a joke that I'm not going to let come out of my mouth. "Delivery is the end of life," the baby said, "and in the after delivery, it is nothing but darkness and anxiety, and it takes us nowhere." "Well, I don't know," said the twin, but certainly we will see Mother, as she will take care of us." "Mother?" The first baby gawped. "You believe in Mother? Where is she now?" The second baby calmly and patiently tried to explain. "She is all around us. It is in her that we live. Without her, there would not be this world." "Ha, I don't see her. So it's only logical that she doesn't exist." To which the other replied, "Sometimes when you're in the silence, you can hear her. You can perceive her. I believe that there is a reality after delivery, and we are here to prepare ourselves for that reality when it comes." Friends, if we follow our own guidance system, if we look at the scripture that's written on our heart, and we go directly to headquarters, to the source of all life, the source of all beingness, and if I do I, you do you, and we allow everyone else to be themselves, we can create a world that works for all, no? But it starts one at a time by each one of us engaging our own spiritual practice. Christine Northrup said, "Every woman who heals herself helps to heal all of the women who have come before her and all of those who come after her." Our transformation work is so valuable. We have to be brave enough to live our own lives. And when we do that, this vision that we know in our hearts that is unfolding, it is the evolution of consciousness. Spiritual awakening is the evolution of consciousness. It is the inevitable result of our spiritual lives. When we are brave enough to believe this, to believe it's possible, and when we are fearless, regardless of the outcome, that is being alive. And that co-creates a world that works for all. Namaste.